And welcome back to Zanpakuto Creation Series. Today's Zanpakuto Creation Series comes to us from Carson. I believe it's either Hanko or Heineko. I'm actually rechecking that name right now because that name, the spelling of that name throws me off. I'm going to be honest. Carson, I think Hanko. So Hanko, Hansel. But yeah, Hanko. I don't know. Because obviously because of Bleach, I know Heineko's a thing, but Heineko has an I in the name. Yours does not. So I'm gonna go with Hanko for right now. If you want to correct me, absolutely. But anyway, you asked the question. What is Zabuza Momochi's Zanpakuto? Now, Zabuza is one of those very interesting characters for this series where normally, like I always say, I tailor the Zanpakuto to the character. I don't. Is it? Oh God, what's this way? It's either one way or the other. I don't tailor the Zanpakuto to the character's abilities, what we see, and just cram those into a Zanpakuto. The Zanpakuto has to be tailored mostly to the character of the character we're talking about. You can throw elements of their abilities in there so long as it makes sense. But you can't. But I don't ever see, like for instance, Naruto's Zanpakuto is not throwing Rasengan, Shadow Clones, all of that in there. It's not doing that. Sasuke's isn't throwing his Mangekyo abilities or his Sharingan or even Chidori necessarily. Although if you've seen my Sasuke video, you know I did go in an elemental route for his. Itachi's is not throwing Susanoo, Amaterasu, his Sharingan. You're not cramming the abilities of the character into a Zanpakuto. That's not how a Zanpakuto works, because abilities are not ingrained, are not a part of the essence of the character in terms of their soul, who they are. Abilities are just things you learn. That's why when you look at Ichigo, he learned Flash Step, sure. He could have even learned Kido, but that wouldn't have changed Zangetsu's ability. Same with, like Byakuya knows God knows how many Kido, but then he's learned all that, but that's not how Zanpakuto work. A Zanpakuto is just a representation of who you are. It is just you extended into a weapon. That's all it is. Now, I say all this because Zabuza is actually a very interesting case in this, where he is actually a character who, A, has basically what I would say is a Shikai already from the get, and B, it has an ability where I'm like, well, this actually represents Zabuza pretty well. So let's just get into it right now. Zabuza Momochi, his base form sword, his sealed form sword, would basically be a katana. Someone asked me, well, are they all katanas? And I'm like, about 90% of them are katanas. And that's the case. I always bring up like Soifon or Gin, Kenpachi. There are exceptions, but the majority of them are just katanas. In terms of what type of Zanpakuto would be, well, as we will get to in just a minute, it would probably be a melee with an ability type Zanpakuto. All Zanpakuto do have some sort of minor ability to them as a reflection of the user. Even Ikkaku's, which you would think is just a melee staff, breaks away and turns into a 3-section staff. So it does, in fact, have an ability to itself. It's just not an ability that's like Kido based or anything like that, but it makes for a very interesting fight. Even Yumachika's false Shikai, technically it has the ability to fan it onto multiple blades, so there is that. Either way, it's still very base-wise, but obviously we know what the ability of this Shikai is going to be, but we'll get to that when we get to that. The name of the Shikai is already revealed as its decapitating carving knife, which would be Kubakiri Bocho. Kubakiri no Bocho? I'm probably butchering that name. Let me get Zabuza's sword up here real quick. I want to get that name. I wrote it down, but I really want to just get the name right here. Let's see, Zabuza Momochi. He wielded his Kubakiri Bocho. And my pronunciation is probably wrong, but Kubakiri Bocho, which is decapitating carving knife. It's Bankai's, given that he is the demon of the mist, his just enjoyment of battle, bloodlust, all that, would probably just be Kubikiri Bocho no Akuma, or of the demon. So, decapitating carving knife of the demon. That would be what his Shikai is. The spirit of the Zanpakuto, I actually realized because I've got my notebook right in front of me as I'm reading this off, I actually realized that of everything I wrote down, I didn't write down what the spirit of the Zanpakuto would be. But given what Zabuza's nature's kind of like, I imagine you could get some sort of like, not a true Oni, but definitely something of a demonic nature. Maybe like a more Oni-esque individual. Something that kind of looks like Kazushini a little bit, except more, again, Oni-like. Or what Tenken's spirit in the Sword Beast Frenzy arc. Not Sword Beast Frenzy, that was the one with Bashin. Zanpakuto Rebellion arc, that was what it was. Kind of like what Tekken looks like a little bit, mixed with Kazushini. So something that's definitely humanoid, but demonic in nature. As for what the ability of the Shikai is, well, we already know what the ability of the sword is. It's one of the few times that a character actually had a weapon on call that not only could make for a good Shikai, the ability of the blade makes for the Shikai's ability. Basically, this Zanpakuto would feed off the iron in blood, or the iron in whatever, and is able to basically recoup and regrow itself. We see this happen in the Fourth Great Ninja War arc, where Zabuza gets his sword back, starts cleaving people, and the sword just starts growing back. Now, that being said, however, to kind of add on to that, I think that if Zabuza trained very hard with his Shikai, he would not only be able to just keep his sword, regrow his sword, but push his sword beyond its limit in Shikai. What I mean by that is, it stays at its normal length most of the time, unless it's broken, in which case, as long as it's cutting or getting iron from somewhere, it will grow back. But if Zabuza wants to, he can maybe mentally turn. The special ability would be he can just continue to grow the sword, and as long as he's able to wield the blade, he can just keep cleaving through individuals. The sword will probably grow fatter, thicker, longer, all that. So he could probably use that as an effective method of combat to a certain degree. Kind of like Nozarashi, although Nozarashi doesn't grow any bigger, and Nozarashi would still probably make mincemeat out of this blade, even if it grew 1,000 times larger, because even though it's getting heavier or longer, it's more unwieldy, and Zabuza would not be a Kenpachi type character who would have the Ryatsu to compete with Kenpachi, at least not in the traditional sense. Nozarashi versus Kubikiri Bocho, it would be in Nozarashi's favor 100%. Granted, he might cleave through Kubikiri Bocho, and then he could just cut Kenpachi a little bit and then get some of that blood back, or iron back. But no, in a straight power off, even if this thing grew to the size of a skyscraper, which it theoretically could, given enough time, it wouldn't really matter. He would not. It's not the same type of effect that Nozarashi has in terms of sheer power. It's just the fact it can grow stronger, larger. It just becomes more difficult to wield larger it gets, even for the user. Now, the Bankai, that's where I'm like, okay, what do I do with a Bankai for this? I think the Bankai would kind of be like a Zangetsu-esque ability, where it compresses down the blade to something akin to more like a Kodachi. So not a true katana, but like a Kodachi, so a very long. It slims the sword down basically into a thinner version of itself, more or less, for quicker movement. But what it really does is that it doesn't need to cut in order to absorb, iron, and it extends itself not just to iron, but to reishi as well, to basically be for Zabuza's use. What this more or less would do is allow itself to continue to absorb, iron or material or reishi-based materials from the surrounding, and basically just fire it back at the opponent. Now, the catch on this would be, that he would only be able to do it for so long, and his body can only. The thing is, the sword is still connected to you, so the reishi isn't just going, and the Ryatsu isn't just going into the sword; it's going into Zabuza. His body can only take so much. So no matter how strong he got as an individual, there would be a limit. The only individual who could use this blade to its theoretical fullest extent would be someone like Aizen, who is functionally immortal, so he wouldn't be able to be killed at all. Even the Soul King, in theory, or Ewok, has limitations. So if you have limitations on what you're capable of doing, then yeah, it goes without saying that your body will eventually just be like, nope, no more, and then just quit on you, or in theory explode. No, I don't think that'd be happening. I think Zabuza would release the blade beforehand, and he's just constantly going to be releasing Miratsu, so that helps balance that out. There's also the rate at which it's absorbing. Honestly, if it's absorbing it, like, what's the best way to put it? We see how fast it grows back when cutting through people in the fourth war arc. We do have to see how fast that is. If you Bankai that up 5 to 10 times, and now it's consistently doing that, that does mean it's doing it at a very enhanced rate. So Zabuza actually needs to be completely on the offensive. And I'm not saying Zabuza couldn't be on the defensive and still make it work, but Zabuza wouldn't have any defensive abilities with this Zanpakuto. While he can release Ryatsu in offensive manner, he wouldn't be able to really use it in any defense. He can't create shields or anything is what I'm getting at. The obvious weaknesses would be this Zanpakuto has no range at all, and it doesn't, it can't collect Ryatsu in its Shikai form. It actually only focuses on the iron part of that. And the Bankai can only absorb certain Ryatsu. Like it can't absorb like Ryatsu of like a higher density in theory. For example, if he went up against Yamamoto, he couldn't just absorb Yamamoto's Ryatsu because it's also has the nature of fire. So it could be very detrimental to him. Or he can't absorb like a Hollow's Ryatsu because he's absorbing the Ryatsu into him. Although we can see Shinigami are more compatible with Hollows than Quincy are, so in theory he could absorb a Hollow's Ryatsu and it wouldn't kill him. But because it'd be a very strange foreign Ryatsu to him, it would be dangerous to do something like that. But ultimately, yeah, so this is definitely a unique Zanpakuto for just to go, because really it was me not designing the Shikai, it was me designing the Bankai. Like, what does the Bankai do for this guy? So yeah, this is what I think the Zanpakuto would be like, and I think it fits with him. It's an aggressive type Zanpakuto. It fits well for his aggressive style. Even though he is a ninja, obviously he knows he's very stealthy, hides in the mist all the time. I still think it works pretty good, well in his favor, I think. But until then, that is just my opinion. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. What do you think a Zanpakuto would be if you don't agree with what I did for the decision? You'll notice I didn't put any other images in this video. That's because there was no real reason to be putting any other images. I could have probably found something to represent his spirit, but that's about it. Because the Shikai's already on his shoulder in that picture. But again, if you agree, great. If you don't, that's cool too. What would you do for Zanpakuto if you do something different? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I will be seeing Sing 2 later today. And I'll probably pre-record my other Who Will Win for tomorrow later today also. But until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you folks later.